Chapter 24, Chapter 22, The Isle of Music. Chapter 22, The Isle of Music.
Dees, the legendary sorceress of Wiston,
Ryu said, tapping his fingers on the meeting table. Everybody else save the woman in question was sitting around it, most of them looking more than slightly displeased.
Companion to my and Nina's ancestors during both Dragon Wars, and integral to both victories. Beautiful, wise, and powerful, with a talent for black magic only matched by 2 or 3 others in the world at any given time. Also arrogant, vain, rude, and lazy, with tendencies towards gluttony, drunkenness, and debauchery. And she was our old buddy all along,
Bao finished, shaking his head.
We really hauled in a big one this time, didn't we, folks? Understatement of the century,
Sten muttered.
Somebody's gotta be the asshole and say this, so it might as well be me. You totally sure we can trust her, boss? I wish I could be,
Ryu admitted.
But not entirely. I was thinking that, too,
Cat growled.
I mean, I can kind of get why she had to play it the way she did, but I still don't like it. It's a little too close to what the Demon Lords are doing, yeah. I dunno.
Rand frowned.
It's kind of annoying, yeah, but it wasn't like it was her idea, or her call. She's been straight with us whenever she could. I must agree.
Spar nodded.
Perhaps it is because I find emotions difficult, but I have to confess that I don't quite see the source of all this aggravation.
It shrugged.
I suppose I'm on the fence,
Nina said, shaking her head.
I can't say I'm pleased to have been deceived for so many years, but as far as I can tell, she's still the same person, with the same personality. If nothing actually changes about that, I'll get over my irritation before too long. It is a complicated situation, is it not?
Jean pointed out.
Perhaps it is best to withhold too much judgment for the time being, until we see more of her true self, yes. Smartest course in my book,
Nero agreed.
Wait it out and see how this actually goes. Don't go gettin' ahead o' yourselves when it comes to judging folks. Wouldn't like it if it happened to us, shouldn't do it to noon else. Man's got a point,
Ryu said solemnly.
I'm not happy about this myself, but that's not going to stop me from giving her a chance. If anybody on this team objects to that, best to get it out right now.
Nobody did, even Sten, and he nodded.
Good. As soon as she wakes up, then, we're off to Tunlin again. Which leaves the question of who's going to wear the hood and translate. And that's my cue to go get us some breakfast from Mrs. Ribob,
Nero grunted, standing up.
Be back in a bit. We could always make the new girl do it,
Bao suggested with a smirk.
That makes enough sense, right? Did you want to try and tell her that?
Nina murmured.
I was gonna let Ryu do it. Just for that, I'm shooting that one down.
Ryu shook his head.
Don't look at me,
Cat grunted, staring at the magic hood. It and the flute were both sitting in the middle of the table. It was made of soft cloth, fluffy around the edges, and had decorative cat-like ears on top.
If I wear that thing around, I'm gonna attract the kind of attention that means I'll have to break some faces, no matter where we are. I'm out too.
Rand gestured at his head, tiny by comparison to the rest of his ridiculously huge frame despite the fact that his skull was the same size, if not shape, as the rest of them.
Wouldn't even fit on me. Myself as well, mon amies,
Jean agreed, actually sounding reluctant about it.
The shape of my head is not feasible. I'm not touching that thing,
Sten said, nodding towards the flute.
Ain't got the right to. Not anymore. I would offer, but I am unsure the enchantments would work on my species,
Spar pointed out apologetically. Bao and Nina exchanged a look.
I hate everything,
Bao eventually grumbled as he snatched the hood and flute up from the table.
Anybody says anything, we throw down. Morning, folks,
Dees called out as she came down the stairs, her serpent's tail carrying her as efficiently as her legs ever had. She had changed out of her school uniform into an extremely low-cut purple top, belted at her stomach with a gold band, and a hooded half-cape the same color.
Where's the coffee?
Her eyes fell upon Bao, holding the hood and flute, and for a moment everybody in the room was silent before she winced sympathetically.
I was wondering who was going to draw the short straw. Hard luck. I'll buy you a drink once we get there. One good thing about Tunlin. The booze. I would have thought it would be your kind of place, actually,
Nina murmured, glancing over at her.
A tropical paradise. I used to think the same thing,
Dees admitted, taking the seat next to Spar and leaning a golden cane against the table. It had been carved to resemble the snake, with a ridiculously large, round green jewel in its mouth.
But then I started catching on. I've been to Tunlin twice before, and both times, it sucked. Everything that could go wrong, did. So by now, I'm starting to sense a theme. That's encouraging,
Sten drawled.
How bad are we talking here? Last time, about an hour in, we were literally thrown off the island,
Dees told him flatly.
The back end. Where the cliffs are tallest. We had to swim the entire way around back to the south side. The trip went downhill from there. Sounds like I'm gonna need that drink,
Bao muttered, slumping in his seat.
I think we all will,
Kat agreed. Once they had eaten, Jean warped them back to the island, and they made their way towards the city. There was a scuffle along the way with some monsters that consisted of a bird's head as large as Rand with legs affixed to the sides, but the group was able to deal with them without much hassle once they stopped staring.
Evolution always was weird on this place,
Dees commented as they entered the city.
Don't remember it being that bad, though. The evolutionary patterns of monsters tend to be slightly more prone to exoticism than those of normal animals,
Spar pointed out.
Do you recall what Creons looked like a millennium ago? The one they had in the circus wasn't even identifiable to me. Good point.
She grimaced.
And sometimes it's just weird. Like sludges. They actually devolved for a while, 1,000 years back, they didn't even have eyes. Somewhere along the line they must have turned it around, though, they look just like they did 3,000 years ago, nowadays. Keeping your ears open.
Ryu asked Bao quietly as the rest of the group continued to chatter. Even if none of the natives could understand them, it would have been strange if they had been silent, and it provided cover for Bao to eavesdrop on passing conversations for information about what was happening at the moment. Said natives were, in fact, playing musical instruments instead of talking verbally. Woodwinds seemed to be the most common, but there were a fair selections of strings as well, and a few horns here and there.
Yeah,
he grunted, looking around casually. The magic hood adorned his head, its strings tied under his chin. Like the island itself, the city of Tunlin was built in a series of terraces, rising further and further to the castle at the peak. It was even more beautiful than the city of Winlan. Everything was polished stone, mainly marble, carved decoratively more often than not. Gleaming decorations of precious metal adorned many surfaces, and flowing waterfalls and streams were everywhere.
How do you think they stop tourists from just grabbing something valuable and running for it? I don't want to know,
Ryu told him flatly.
And neither do you. Focus. Anything going on we can take advantage of. Sounds like the Queen's sick,
Bao muttered.
Doesn't seem like anybody's too concerned about it, though. Apparently she's a real pain in the ass. The Queen of Tunlin is something of a disgrace to royalty everywhere,
Nina said under her breath.
My father tried to normalize relations with the island several times, but each attempt ended with him using language I had never heard him say otherwise. Should have known,
Dees commented, dropping out of the decoy conversation for a moment.
The queens were always a big part of why everything went to shit, both times.
She rolled her eyes.
Welcome to Tunlin. Ugh.
Ryu grimaced.
Maybe we'll be able to avoid that situation entirely.
They all considered that for a moment.
Yeah,
he growled before anybody could even say anything.
Anyways, who'll be in charge if the queen's down? Sounds like the Castellan's handling it,
Bao grunted grumpily.
Some old lady named Baba. She runs the show anyways, so that's nothing new. She'll be the one we need to see, then.
Ryu nodded slightly.
Let's just hope there's some way we can convince them to let us borrow the therapy pillow. Oh, there'll be a way, alright,
Dees said cynically.
The question is how much it'll suck. You know, as much as I wish I could disagree with that, I can't,
Sten grumbled.
I don't think any of us can, by this point.
Ryu shook his head.
The sooner we get it over with, the better, then. Think you can talk us inside? Worth a shot.
Bao glanced at a pretty young woman walking past with a clarinet and raised an eyebrow.
Might as well see if this thing's working.
Raising the flute to his lips, he played a quick melody that was far too skillful to sound anything close to natural, coming from him. The girl's response was immediate. Turning on her heel, she delivered a ringing slap to his face before stalking off in a huff.
Looks like it needs some work,
Ryu said dryly.
Keep in mind who you're talking about,
Kat reminded him.
He probably deserved that. I wanted to make sure.
Bao shrugged.
So, yeah. I definitely deserved that. But it works. As glad as I am to hear that, mon ami, I do not think it would be a good idea to repeat the experience up at the palace, no.
Jean suggested lightly.
Oh, hell no.
Bao grimaced as they reached the top of the stair-lined path and approached the gates, a pair of huge, gilded doors set in the front of the palace. Said building was a huge, square white building in the center of an artificial lake, the only way in a stone bridge. The guards on duty were both female, humans dressed in light plate mail, and looked rather bored. Bo's tune was answered by a few perfunctory notes on their own flutes, and he shrugged.
They said to go on in. It's that easy.
Rand blinked as the guards opened the massive, gilded front doors.
I've heard of lax security, but come on. Welcome to Tunlin,
Dees repeated.
There's nowhere else quite like it. Sounds like they could take some lessons from Highland, then,
Sten muttered, looking slightly offended. More guards were lazing about the entrance hall. In any other city, it would have been majestic, but here its rich decoration made it simply another part of Tunlin. The interior guard were all female as well, and none of them seemed to pay any attention to the visitors. They were busy chatting, gambling and drinking.
Are they just for show? Not our problem,
Ryu reminded him.
The quicker we get in and out, the better. Right.
Bao queried another guard, then nodded after she responded.
Up on the top floor. The Castellan will be in the throne room.
It didn't take long for them to find the massive twin spiral staircases leading up throughout the palace, winding around a pillar of stone almost as thick as Gondaref's trunk had been. They passed by several floors, some held only more guards, while others more interesting sights, such as a kitchen full of Simon chefs, which they moved past quickly for several reasons. Emerging from the stairwell brought them directly into the throne room, which resembled a concert hall more than anything else. There were hundreds of chairs alongside the long red carpet leading to the throne, and tall, tinted windows lined the walls. A grand piano sat next to said throne, though neither was occupied. To the other side was a desk along with a much more ordinary chair. A wizened old woman in a blue, hooded robe was sitting behind it, eyes on her paperwork. Without looking up, she played a desultory tune on a clarinet.
She says whatever it is, it can wait,
Bao translated.
Oh, no.
Ryu shook his head.
Tell her.
The crone's head shot up, and she stared at them before speaking, though in a strange, croaking sing-song tone.
Outsiders? Now, of all times? But if you can understand me. And the sound of that flute.
She stared at the hood on Bo's head, and the flute in his hands, then turned to Dees, and her eyes widened before she played another sardonic-sounding little tune.
She says there goes the palace,
Bao told them, giving Dees a strange look.
Just what happened the last time you were here? Long story.
Dees shrugged.
I guess I am pretty recognizable.
She gave the old woman a keen look.
And I should have known ahead of time you would speak our language. The power behind the throne here always does. It is necessary,
the crone admitted, recovering from her shock before turning to Ryu and Nina.
I suppose it has been about 1,000 years. I never thought I would see you three return to us again in my lifetime, though. It's...
Ryu started to protest that wasn't the way it worked, then paused. It didn't really matter, and he didn't want to talk about it any more than he had to.
Look, my lady. We're just a team of freelance adventurers. The Dragon Kin. Is that so?
The old woman's eyes narrowed.
Well then, Mr. Battison,
he told her.
Ryu Battison. Mr. Battison.
She nodded sharply.
Perhaps it would be best if we kept this on that basis, then. For all of us, and for the structural integrity of this building. We have a problem, you see, one I believe you may be able to help us with. Should you be able to, then I will of course grant you.
She left it hanging.
The therapy pillow,
Nina told her.
We need to borrow it. Again.
She rolled her eyes.
We weren't surprised either. Of course.
The crone sighed, standing up.
All right, follow me. I'll show you the problem.
Walking behind the throne, she opened a hidden door, and the group followed her into a huge bedroom. What looked like a grotesquely huge statue of a woman was lying on the bed, clad in red pajamas. It was only when they noticed her breathing that Ryu realized she was an actual, living human, something he had thought to be impossible considering her size. A crown was nestled among the mass of her messy brown hair, identifying her.
Holy shit,
he muttered quietly, as most of the others had similar reactions. The woman was ridiculously overweight, literally wider than she was tall. Joker and Trout, a pair of demons who had been tied for the fattest men he had ever seen when in their human forms, would have barely met a quarter of the queen's mass. Her face was almost invisible among the blob of flesh that was her head, and her arms and legs were like logs, ending in hands and feet larger than his entire head, with fingers that had to be half a foot thick.
I can see why you have a problem,
Jean told the Castellan with a straight face.
Welcome to Tunlin,
Dees muttered under her breath once more.
How?
Nina stammered, staring.
How long has she been like this? It cannot have been a very great duration,
Spar said gravely.
This woman must weigh nearly a ton. The human body is incapable of surviving that kind of strain. Honestly, I'm surprised she's still alive right now. Oh, she's always been overweight, but it wasn't anywhere near this bad until recently.
The crone shook her head bitterly.
About 3 months ago, some paladin from the Church of Saint Eva came by to try and convert the queen. We've got a chapel on the island, but only a few of us actually attend it, and the royal family's never been among them. Especially not our queen, all she cares about is eating and sleeping. When she met with that paladin, she told him that if Saint Eva could give her an eternal buffet she might consider it. I'm guessing that didn't go over too well,
Sten commented.
Like a lead albatross,
the old lady agreed.
Before the paladin left, he told the queen Saint Eva would curse her for her sins. We all laughed at the time, but then this started happening. She began growing bigger and bigger, so fast it was unnatural, even considering how much she ate. We eventually had to put her on a starvation diet for her own health, but even that didn't work. She's gained another 100 pounds since. She's comatose now, and if this keeps up...
She spread her hands.
Our physicians give her a week. That doesn't sound like the church's usual MO,
the Highlander muttered.
This paladin. What was his name? No way, man,
Ryu told him flatly.
He'd never do it that way.
Most of the others agreed, only Spar and Dees were silent.
Gabriel, I think.
The old woman frowned.
You know him? Nope,
Ryu replied, relaxing slightly, though a small note of disquiet remained with him. For some reason, the name did sound vaguely familiar.
We're on good terms with another paladin, though, and he wouldn't like that one bit. Maybe next time we see him we'll tell him this little story and see how he feels about that sort of thing happening in his church. Could be he'll decide to clean house. More power to him, then.
The crone smiled slightly, but only for a moment.
Right now, though, we need to save the queen, and there's only one man I know of who can do that. A magician named Ged, although it'd be more accurate to call him an alchemist. Blending magic and science.
Bao frowned.
Don't see too many of those. I've heard of him,
Nina said.
He's supposedly a genius. But I was told that he lived here, actually. As Tunlin's court magician. He was.
The crone grimaced.
But he was so foul-tempered and lecherous that it was only a matter of time before he offended the queen. A few years back, she ordered him banished to the Isle of Mount Mauri, north of here. I see why you need to hire us for this.
Ryu nodded slowly.
The old man probably won't be in the mood to come back willingly after that. I get it.
Kat grinned suddenly.
You want us to bring this jerk back, the easy way or the hard way, and persuade him to save the day. Exactly.
The crone nodded sharply, smiling again, rather unpleasantly this time.
Think you can handle that? Trust me, ma'am,
Rand said with an unusual trace of sarcasm in his voice.
You've found the perfect people for this kind of job. We're not that bad,
Kat protested, then paused.
Are we? The Hasekos are keeping track of our reputation for us back home,
the big farmlander told her gravely.
You might be surprised. Then again, you might not be. That business with Trout.
Sten guessed.
Bingo. Sounds fair,
Ryu said quickly, heading that off before it could get worse.
We'll do it. Good.
She nodded.
Cure the queen, and the therapy pillow's yours. We'll be off in the morning, then.
He inclined his head towards the group, and they left the room.
See you when we get back.
Once they were back in the streets, he glanced at Dees.
So, what's with the three of you, hey? Tunlin has some pretty strange beliefs,
Rand, of all people, explained.
They've latched onto the concept of reincarnation from Namanda, which is how I heard about this, but they're kind of weird about it. I think they figure that you retain the memory of your past lives, but you can't access it.
He shrugged. The big man's devotion to the Namandian faith of his homeland wasn't something he talked about much, or in detail.
Welcome to Tunlin, I guess. Exactly.
Dees nodded.
Trust me, it's easier just to keep it on that basis around here. Saves your head from hurting, too. I can see that.
Ryu shook his head.
And all that's in addition to the chapel.
He trailed off as, from the east, he suddenly heard the ringing of the bells to announce a sermon.
Hey. A little late. No, wait, time zones again. It would be about time here, now.
He glanced over in that direction, feeling a certain sense of guilt over the sudden realization that he hadn't attended a service since midsummer, 3 months past now.
Yeah, guess it would be,
Bao muttered, glancing over as well. By the look on his face, he was thinking the same thing. The two of them had always been a more casual sort of follower than most sons of the church, but they had gone at least once a month. Circumstances had simply been against them lately, with Bao forced into hiding and Ryu traveling in parts of the world where the church held little to no presence. Still, there had been plenty of chances ever since proving Beau's freedom, and the sudden realization that they had been missing those weighed on both their minds.
Guess so,
Kat agreed, looking pensive as well. Though Ryu had never actually gone to a service with her before, he knew her views on religion were the same as his and Beau's, and guessed that she was feeling the same way.
Hey, listen. Before we hit the town, do you think maybe we should go?
Nina told the three of them softly.
We'll meet you outside when it's done.
Despite her atheism, the princess was very conscious towards the various religions of her friends, and sympathetic towards their faiths.
If it is all right, I would like to accompany you as well,
Jean said.
I have no particular alignment to any religion, but neither am I opposed, and I have always been curious as to what attending a sermon would be like. As would I,
Spar added.
Although I do have another faith I follow, I would like to experience it, simply for the knowledge. Should be fine.
Ryu nodded, reminding himself to ask Spar about that later. It was the first time the grass man had spoken of religious matters.
Just as long as you don't bring up another faith in front of the other people in the chapel. We'll see the rest of you guys outside in an hour.
The other four nodded as the five of them headed east. The chapel wasn't hard to locate. Like the rest of Tunlin, it was built into the side of a higher level of the city. Walking inside, they quietly sat down in the back, and waited for the sermon to start. Though the pews were only scarcely filled, the dozen or so natives who attended were clearly devoted to the faith, hanging on the priest's every word even as he spoke through a series of bells, translating the book of Saint Eva with what even Ryu could recognize as only moderate skill. Despite that, the gentle-looking old man was clearly doing the best he could. He seemed to have been sent to Tunlin out of an honest desire to help the natives, and delivered the sermon with a soft but firm passion. If he was startled by seeing such a strange variety of clans among the visitors, he showed no sign of it. Despite the fact that Bao was the only one of them who could actually understand the sermon, Ryu felt the same peace that always came over him when at a chapel, and as far as he could tell, the others did as well. It was a strange sensation, but a good one, for as long as they were listening, everything that normally bothered and worried and troubled him no longer seemed to matter. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. He was free of everything that burdened him, and could simply relax and enjoy the peace and tranquility.
Interesting,
Jean said quietly once it was done, eyes speculative, as the people started to leave.
I cannot say I am quite ready to convert, but I believe I see why others do. Perhaps I shall attend again. Perhaps,
Spar murmured noncommittally, face as blank as always.
It's fine.
Ryu smiled slightly.
We're about as religiously tolerant as it gets, in this group. Let's go meet up with the others.
Leaving, they joined the others, who were waiting outside by a fountain.
Hey, guys. Sorry to keep you waiting. No problem.
Sten shrugged.
How about we hit the beach, hey? It's a little early to start drinking, even for us.
Dees turned out to have been right. The taverns in Tunlin were the only good thing about it, as they discovered after they returned from the beach. Ryu normally wasn't much for bright, fruity drinks, but the ones they served there were as cheap as ale and packed 5 times the punch. The afternoon was enjoyable, and eventually they managed to find an inn with rooms that they all collapsed into, their troubles forgotten for the moment and the night. Power. We need more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give your heart to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your heart and soul to God. You will become God's power. In the morning, they made their way back down to the beach and called Grandpa up again. If Dees was surprised by the prospect of a whale ride, she didn't show it. The old behemoth knew their destination, and brought them there in a matter of hours. The Isle of Mount Maori was even more forbidding than Tunlin's north side, a grim peak jutting straight out from the waves with only a single, rocky cove which the whale dropped them off on.
Alright, now we just need to find this geezer,
Bao muttered.
Knowing our luck, he'll be up on the peak. Probably,
Sten agreed.
Could be,
Dees acknowledged.
or he could be in that cave with the smoke coming out of it.
She pointed to said cave, at the head of the cove, which was indeed emanating a noxious-looking dark green smoke. Everybody exchanged a glance, then took up positions lounging around the cove until the smoke had cleared off before Ryu carefully led the way inside.
I told you there was too much sulfur.
An angry man's voice was yelling as they made their way through a long tunnel.
I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you?
They emerged into a large, rounded cavern, the back of which was elevated. That portion appeared to contain a bed and other furnishings, mostly untidy. The floor of the cavern was packed bookshelves, desks, and counter, overloaded with books, scrolls, and chemistry equipment. A blast crater in one corner had probably contained more of the same until recently. The source of the yelling was an ugly old man clad in unkempt blue robes, stained by chemicals and ash. Bald as an egg with a messy grey beard, he stood with his back hunched and one hand held before him like a raised claw, screaming further insults. His victim, an ordinary-looking middle-aged fellow with a heavy mustache, was leaning back and cringing as he continued to unload before abruptly whirling on Ryu and company.
And you?
He roared.
Who the hell are you supposed to be? The alchemist, Ged, I presume.
Ryu replied, ignoring that.
Freelance adventurers, out of Oria. We need to ask you a favor. Mercs, you mean?
Ged scowled.
And why the hell should I give you the time of day? Whatever it is, I don't have time to listen to your crap. I'm a busy man.
He looked them all over, and his eyes narrowed as he smiled unpleasantly.
Unless it's some pretty girls, that is. I'll talk all night with any of them, ha ha ha. Looks like you've got enough to go around. If it's important enough for you to come all the way out here to look for me, surely you can spare one or two of them for the evening, don't you think? Ooh boy,
Jean murmured as the three women all exchanged glances.
Why don't you allow us to talk to this gentleman, Ryu?
Nina suggested casually.
We'll be happy to explain the situation to him. Yeah, we can do that.
Kat nodded, bright and cheerful.
We're good at explaining things to people. You could even say we specialize in explanations,
Dees added, eyes sparkling.
By all means, leave it to us. We'll let you do that, sure,
Ryu agreed quickly, as did the others, including Spar and the other man.
Go right ahead. We'll be outside.
Turning, they all marched right back down the tunnels as the women approached Ged.
Hey, what's this?
The old man said, smirking.
All three of you? Well, I'm sure not going to complain. Poor bastard,
Sten muttered as they practically raced down the corner. Once they were outside, they leaned against the mountainside and waited as various violent noises came from back in the cavern.
That was supposed to be a genius. Welcome to Tunlin,
Bao said flatly. Nobody argued the point.
Who are you, anyways?
Rand asked the man who had come with them.
I'm the old man's apprentice,
the man replied, shrugging.
Guess it's time to look for a new line of work. Nah, they won't kill him,
Bao told him, then paused.
Probably. We need him in one piece to haul him back to Tunlin. Tunlin.
The apprentice blinked.
It's been a long time since I was back there. Are they retracting his banishment? I'd suggest they might if he plays his cards right, but judging from what I know of his personality, that's highly doubtful,
Spar said dubiously.
The Queen's really sick,
Ryu explained, then paused.
As in, ill. The old lady hired us to haul Ged back in order to cure her. One way or another. Is they one way or another referring to him curing her, or to you hauling him back?
The apprentice asked cautiously.
Take a wild guess,
Sten told him as the noise from inside the cavern ceased. A few moments later, Kat emerged carrying a burlap sack over her shoulder, a pair of feet protruding from it. Nina and Dees followed her.
Got him,
the fiery Warren said smugly.
We noticed.
Ryu coughed.
All right, Jean, warp us back.
He glanced at the apprentice.
You coming? No way in hell,
the man replied quickly, shaking his head.
I'll clean this place up. Guess if he's not back in a month, I'll take the boat out of here. If he does not return by then, you will most likely have the right idea, mon ami,
Jean told him before casting the spell, dropping them right outside the palace gates. The guards gave them a quick glance, then exchanged a look and shrugged before waving them on.
Oh, come on,
Sten grumbled.
Would you prefer it if they were to object to this?
Spar murmured quietly.
Even I am eagerly awaiting the conclusion of this trip already. Welcome to Tunlin,
Ryu agreed as they headed back up the stairs to the throne room.
The less that complicates this, the better. We're back,
Dees called towards the Castellan as they walked in.
And we're pretty sure he's still alive. Glad to hear it,
the old lady drawled sarcastically, but there was a smirk on her face as she saw the sack over Kat's shoulder.
We kind of need him. We went easy on him,
Kat promised.
Easy for us, anyways. Oi, sunshine. Wakey wakey.
Tipping the sack forward, she shook it, and Ged came tumbling out, bruised and slightly charred but otherwise intact.
Forget it,
he growled, crossing his arms.
Like I'm doing anything after that? Take a hike, all of you.
He glanced over at the Castellan, and his glare softened slightly.
Hey there, Baba. How are you doing? Worse off for seeing you in such good health,
she snapped.
I was hoping they'd rough you up more than this. And your tongue's still sharp.
He chuckled, glaring at Ryu's group again.
Can't say I expected you to hire thugs like this, though. They said something about the Queen? You might as well tell me what's wrong if I'm already here. You had better see for yourself,
Baba told him grimly, walking back towards the bedroom.
If she doesn't lose some weight, and soon. You beat me up and hauled me all the way back here for a diet treatment?
Ged gave them a withering glance.
Guess it is true what they say about mercs. I'm out of here. Get in here and see for yourself, or I'll ask them to throw you in here,
Baba snarled.
We'd do it, too,
Rand told him gravely.
Better do as the lady says. Bah.
Throwing his hands up, Ged followed Baba into the bedroom.
Should we accompany them?
Jean asked politely.
I don't particularly need to see that any more than I have to,
Ryu pointed out.
Oh, hell no,
Bao grumbled, and the others all made various noises of assent as Ged began to curse at great length and volume.
I didn't think it was that bad,
the old man admitted, visibly shaken, as he and Baba emerged from the bedroom.
All right, it looks like you were right to come to me. It's going to take all of my skill to save her life at this point.
He paused, and glanced keenly at the girls.
I'll even lower my asking price to one kiss from each of you. See, there's a problem with that,
Dee said, smiling slightly.
The problem is that if we do, you're the kind of guy who'll grope us, and then we'll have to break your arms on general principle. Which would make it a bit difficult for you to do your job. Yeesh.
Ged grimaced.
You're not even joking about that, are you? Nope.
Kat agreed cheerfully.
Fine, fine.
He shook his head.
The sooner I get this done with, the sooner I get to go back to my island and never see any of you for the rest of my life, right? I know how this song and dance goes. About time you decided to be sensible about something,
Baba grunted.
You'll be getting to work, then. As soon as I can.
The old man glowered at Ryu.
And I don't need an audience. Right.
Ryu waved as they turned away.
We'll be staying at the Swan's Nest if you need us. If we're not there, try the Grape Ape or the beach.
Once they were a safe distance away, he lowered his voice.
Think it's gonna be this easy? Not likely.
Dees shook her head.
This is gonna keep on getting worse before it gets better. Trust me. Welcome to Tunlin.
Sten sighed. They spent the rest of the day at the bar, regardless, and when the next morning dawned without being called up to the palace, they proceeded down to the beach to relax. There were monsters, of course, but none of them were the types to let that sort of occasional interruption spoil the mood, some of them even seemed to see it as an additional bonus. It was only when they were making their way back through the city as sunset fell that a messenger from the palace came down to find them and explain that the Castellan and magician needed them again, surprising nobody.
How's it going?
Ryu asked bluntly as they walked into the bedroom.
Shitty,
Ged grunted. He and Baba were both standing next to the queen, who looked unchanged.
I've been giving it everything I've got, but none of it works. See for yourself.
Pinching the queen's nose, he poured the contents of a tiny flash down her throat. For a moment, nothing happened, and then a cloud of smoke exploded over her. When it cleared, she was at the opposite extreme of body mass, a skeletal figure whose skin was stretched so tightly over her bones it looked almost as if she was about to break apart.
You have done it.
Jean crowed.
Well done. Oh.
Another puff of smoke appeared almost instantly, and then the queen was massive once more.
Told you,
Ged said crankily.
none of my cures are working. Every time I apply one, she reverts almost instantly. Baba was right, there's some kind of powerful, evil magic at work here, and it's rooted in her heart. If I mess with that, it'll kill her. Not good,
Nina murmured.
But isn't it the intent of the curse to kill her anyways? Wrong.
Ged shook his head.
Look at her, you blockheads. There's no way in hell she should be alive right now. No, this curse seems to be trying to alter her body. To transform her into something else. Some other life form. Shit,
Ryu growled, glancing at Deez, who nodded once. Examining his dragon's tear, he aimed it at the queen, then narrowed his eyes as it went black.
Double shit. She's being transformed into a demon. A demon.
Baba yelled.
Our queen would never agree to that. She's spoiled and selfish, and stupid too, but even she would draw the line at consorting with infinity.
She trailed off, exchanging a glance with Ged.
Consciously, maybe,
the magician agreed.
But as you said, she's always been like this. If somebody cursed her, and the transformation was fueled by her subconscious, she'd be vulnerable to that. She's not a demon yet, though, right?
Bao asked quickly.
Is there any way to head it off before then? What do you think we called you here for, hey?
Ged snapped, then paused, grimacing heavily.
I mean... Damn it. I need your help. If... you could. Please. Don't strain yourself,
Deez advised him, smirking slightly.
We don't get paid until the queen is cured, so no need for sweet talk. Good.
Ged reverted instantly. Producing a piece of paper, he gave it to Ryu.
This is a list of equipment I'll need. Go see my apprentice on Mount Maori, and get it from him. Bring it all back here, and there might be a way. Why didn't you bring it with you?
Cat asked pointedly.
Because it's kind of hard to collect your tools when you're stuffed in a sack and dragged back.
Ged yelled.
Oh.
She blinked, then scratched her head, looking slightly embarrassed.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Our bad. Let's just go,
Ryu told them, and they went back outside so that Jean could warp them to the Isle of Mount Maori once more. Heading into the cave, they found the apprentice tidying up the lab, and Ryu tossed him the list without preamble.
Hey. Your boss needs us to bring everything on here back to Tunlin. That bad, hey?
The apprentice scanned the list quickly, then frowned.
I'll be able to get most of this together in a couple hours, but... there's one problem. We don't keep Ammonite or Rubro Klupi on hand, it goes bad too quickly once picked, and it's a pain in the ass to get, so we wait until we need some before we go find it. Let me guess.
Ryu sighed.
You want us to go get some of whatever that is while you're getting everything else ready? Actually, it was the master's idea,
the apprentice pointed out, showing them the letter. There was, in fact, a note after the last item reading, send these muskla heads to go get it while you get the rest of this together. Make sure they get the right one.
Figures.
Bao snorted.
Alright, what is this stuff? Ammonita.
Nina repeated slowly.
That's a mushroom, correct? You got it.
The apprentice pulled a book off a shelf and began thumbing through it.
This island is famous for its mushrooms. The one we need is only found at the mountain's peak, I'm afraid.
Finding the right page, he showed them an illustration of a squat, round-capped fungus, red with golden spots.
There'll be a lot that look like it, so make sure you get the Rubro Klupi. It's the one with the 4 spots on the rim, each a quarter of the way around, and a fifth at the top, in the exact center. Think you can remember that?
Spar. Ryu glanced at the grass man, who nodded.
I will be able to locate the correct specimen,
it assured them.
So now we're going mountain climbing.
Ran sighed.
Super. That's just what my knight needed. Do I look like I should be mountaineering? Welcome to Tunlin,
Cat grumbled.
Here's a map,
the apprentice said kindly, handing it to Ryu.
The fastest route to the top is on there. Thanks.
Taking it, Ryu nodded at the others.
Alright, no helping it. Let's go have ourselves a hike. Do not look so downcast, mon amis,
Jean said brightly.
It will be healthy exercise, the fresh air will be wonderful, and the view we will have underneath the night sky? Magnifique! There are worse ways to spend an evening.
Nobody had the heart to say anything about that.
Alright, according to this map, we take the trail winding around the west side,
Ryu muttered as they emerged. Turning right, he glanced up said trail, which led over several streams and had chunks of it completely, outright missing in other places. As they stared up, a man-sized mushroom with a bulging eye and two long, spindly arms ending in grasping claws attached to its trunk hopped around into visibility.
Yeah, this is gonna suck. Got it,
Bao grunted, firing his crossbow and pegging the monster in the eye. Flailing, it tipped over backwards and fell off the edge, presumably all the way down into the ocean.
Think there'll be more of them. Does a harpy eat week-old carrion?
Rand muttered, glancing at Kat and Ryu.
Looked kind of like those dokadens from the Tagwoods, didn't it? Kind of, yeah,
Kat agreed, folding her arms behind her head and leaning back to stretch.
We'll have to watch out for magic. I'll go first, keep an eye out for more of those. I'd better go last, then,
the big man pointed out.
If I trip or slip, anybody behind me's gonna be in a lot more trouble than I am. I'll just keep out of the way as long as we're on a narrow trail, if you all don't mind.
Nina smiled slightly, wings beating as she floated off to the side.
I'll stay with you, though. Somehow, I get the feeling that just taking the fast way to the top by myself would get me an unpleasant surprise. Probably,
Sten agreed.
I'll go after Kat. Me next, then,
Ryu decided.
Then Bao, Spar, Dees, Jean, Rand. Keep an eye out both ahead of and behind us. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the locals try that after a while.
He grimaced.
Single file sucks. Let's just hope it won't be this bad all the way up,
Kat suggested, then grimaced.
Did I really just say that? Sorry. Too late.
Bao shook his head, mock mournfully.
The damage is done. This is gonna suck twice as much now. That is not a logically sound equation,
Spar muttered as they started making their way up the mountainside.
Logic is optional when dealing with Tunlin,
Dees advised it.
The problem is, if you try to apply logic anyways, it almost seems like you can, at the time. Then when you're finished, you look back at what you were thinking, and it makes it even worse. See, now that makes sense,
Rand told her, then frowned.
Wait. Can we talk about something else?
Ryu asked quickly.
Sure,
Kat called back.
Heads up.
She pointed above their heads, and everybody glanced further up the mountainside to see several hairy purple monopeds with one eye hefting boulders before hurling them down at the group.
I've got this one,
Dees boasted, raising her hands and muttering. As the boulders fell, a cylinder of wind suddenly descended from the heavens, flinging both them and the unlucky monsters far out to sea.
See? Told you that you wouldn't regret hiring me on. The typhoon spell,
Nina identified it.
Somewhat of a misnomer. I've been studying that one myself. Next time, let me try. I'd prefer that we get indoors so there isn't a next time, if it's all the same,
Bao grumbled.
That wasn't how I'd prefer we do things. According to the map, there's a cave up ahead,
Ryu told him.
We should cut through it. You guys see it? Yeah, here it is,
Kat said, rounding the side of the mountain.
Chances on it being infested with monsters.
Despite her cynical tone, her eyes were bright, and the tip of her tail was twitching back and forth.
Too high for my tastes, but not for yours,
Sten grunted.
At least we'll be able to spread out in there.
They waited for the rest of the group to arrive before heading in. As the Highlander had predicted, there were some kind of repulsive mobile fungus clumps living inside the cavern, resembling nothing so much as clusters of purple human arms rising from the central mass, hands waving idiotically.
How many of them you see?
Ryu asked casually as the freaks of nature began slithering towards them along the ground.
5.
Bao grunted, aiming and firing.
Make that 4.
He made a face as his target continued to come on despite the bolt sticking out of it.
Scratch that. Still 5. No, you were right,
Nina corrected him, lobbing a fireball at it, and the monstrosity expired without a sound.
4. Make that 3, then.
Dees grinned as she dittoed the spell, then grimaced as the flaming monster kept coming.
Or maybe not. I hate math. Looks like 3 to me.
Sten shrugged, skewering the beast with a thrown knife.
Hold on, hold on.
Cat ran forward, front flipped through the air, and brought the end of her battle staff down on another one with enough force to splatter it for 3 feet around her.
Damn it, EO. 2. 1.5,
Spar said clinically, lashing out with his rap and entangling one.
Jean, would you mind adjusting the numbers further? But of course, Mon ami.
Jean took up a stance, then skewered the monster repeatedly in a blur of frenzied motion.
1. 0.
Ryu chopped the last one in half with an overhead swing. Agility and speed were hardly their strong suits, it seemed.
Good job, people. Sorry I didn't join in, but I didn't want to get any on me,
Rand told them, raising his fists sheepishly.
Can't blame you,
Cat grimaced, looking down at the bits that had splattered onto her lower legs.
Where's another waterfall when you need one? Whoa.
Ryu yelled as she suddenly buckled.
Cat, what's wrong? Feeling woozy,
she muttered, leaning against the wall of the tunnel. Her skin was starting to show a strange, purple discoloration.
And really hungry, all of a sudden. Shit.
Sten yelped.
Somebody, anybody, tell me you can cure zombification. Zom.
Ryu started to repeat, then broke off, eyes wide.
Oh, hell no. No.
Bao growled, exchanging a glance with Rand, who shook his head.
No, I don't know that spell yet. Neither do I,
Spar admitted clinically.
However, there is a spring of life back inside the magician's home. I saw it hidden in a corner. Too far down,
Sten muttered.
She'll never make it. Shit.
Ryu. Cat whispered.
Am I gonna be? It's okay.
Ryu started to walk towards her, then paused as Sten held out a hand, pointing at the goop on her legs. Narrowing his eyes, he nodded and kept going, embracing Cat gently while making sure not to touch the slime.
We'll figure something out. Indeed we shall, Mon ami,
Jean murmured, stepping forward and whispering. As he spoke the words of a spell, white dust fell from the air over Cat, and she suddenly relaxed in Ryu's arms, sleeping like a log.
Dream well, mademoiselle. Good thinking,
Nina told him.
Would somebody please explain just what the hell is going on here?
Ryu asked, quiet but angry, as he lowered Cat to the floor.
Zombification is seriously bad shit, boss,
Sten explained.
It's reversible, but until the victim is cured, they basically become a brain-dead ghoul. She'd have started trying to take pieces out of us in another minute. It takes about 2 to set in completely. Healing magic and the water of life are the only cures. I thought we'd have to knock her out, but Jean had a better idea. That magical sleep should keep her out for a couple hours as long as nothing shocks her awake,
Dees continued.
Plenty of time for her to get her back to the spring. Should we turn back, then?
Nina asked quietly.
No.
Taking off his shirt, Ryu wrapped it around Cat's legs, covering the slime.
Cat wouldn't want us to. She'd tell us to keep going, that we had plenty of time to get to the top and still bring her back down before she woke back up.
He glanced at Rand.
Right. Yeah.
The big farmlander bent over and carefully hefted her over one of his shoulders.
She'd never let us live it down if we went back without the mushroom. Let's keep going, then.
Ryu nodded.
There's a waterfall up ahead. We can clean our weapons off there. Probably best not to touch anything that touched those until we can repeat it back at the spring, though. And if we run into any more of those things, waste them.
Nobody said anything more as they continued out the other end of the tunnel, onto a narrow ledge across the back of the mountain. It passed under another waterfall, which they used to clean their weapons off as Ryu had told them, and then led to a second cavern. This one held a couple of carnivorous giant flowers. As soon as they entered, both turned and opened their maws to spew waves of fire at the group. Jean, Rand, and Ryu took the brunt of the attack, shielding the others with their bodies. Almost as soon as it ended, Bao and Spar were healing them. Nina, Sten, and Dees moved forward then, and with narrowed eyes and bowed fingers, returned the favor with a triple pyramid of flame that obliterated the arboreal menace.
Second exit on the left should take us to the peak,
Ryu grunted as they walked past the destruction, trudging uphill through the cavern. They found the cave mouth without any more trouble, and walked out onto a trail wider than it had been down below. Around a corner, they finally saw the top of Mount Maori, where a small lake poured down the side, surrounded by trees. Several small islands dotted its surface, and flowers were in abundance, as were red-capped mushrooms. The only unwelcome sight was a bronze idol, roughly the same size and shape as the Queen of Tunlan had been. It looked to have been made out of a pair of spheres, one smaller and set above the other with a pointed top. Crude features had been set in it, resembling a human face. As they walked up, it swiveled on its base to stare at them in immobile curiosity. And then, as they approached further, the earth began to shake beneath their feet.
Not again!
Ryu yelled as they were slammed around, smashed against the ground itself by the violent motion repeatedly. Thankfully, nobody actually fell off, and when the quake ended they were all bruised and battered, but still alive.
That does it. I'm gonna. You know what?
Ran said, calmly and quietly.
I've had enough shit for tonight. You mind, boss?
Without waiting for an answer, he handed Cat over to him, then advanced on the bronze idol, slow and purposeful. Suddenly, the enemy lunged bodily at him, but Rand was ready, catching it in his massive arms. With a grunt of effort that rose until it was a furious bellow, the big farmlander gripped the statue tightly and raised it high into the air before turning and hurling it over the edge of the mountain to plummet into the deep blue sea below.
Holy shit,
Dees murmured, staring, as he walked back over, breathing slightly heavily but otherwise calm.
Let's get this mushroom and get off this damn rock,
he told them as Ryu handed Cat back to him.
I believe it's this one,
Spar said, walking past him and proceeding over to the base of a tree. Bending over, it pulled a mushroom the size of its head from the earth. It looked identical to the picture in the book.
Good, good.
Jean smiled, but even on him, it looked strained.
Now then, back to the bottom for us, yes. You were right about one thing,
Nina murmured as he warped them back down.
The view was very nice. We can enjoy it another time if we really want,
Ryu told her as they went back into the cave. The apprentice was still inside, packing things into a satchel. As they walked in, he looked up and his eyes widened as he saw Rand carrying Cat.
What happened? We need to use your spring of life,
Bao told him flatly.
Now. Oh.
He grimaced.
The Bambans, right? I should have warned you about those. Yes, you should have,
Ryu agreed tightly as they all crowded around the spring. Rand set Cat down in it, propping her back up against it, and Ryu took his shirt back, making sure to soak it as well.
Everybody clean your weapons off again, too. We don't want to take any chances with this kind of shit.
Ryu. Cat muttered, eyes slowly opening. The purple tinge was fading quickly, and within a few moments, she was both awake and back to normal. Looking around at them, she blinked, then smiled wickedly.
So, is there a reason you're not wearing your shirt right now? Not that I mind the view, but...
Ryu started to say, then blinked, remembering what Nina had said as they were on their way down. Turning, he saw her look away, blushing slightly. Despite how much he wanted to say something, nothing came to mind, and he became aware that the others were all pointedly looking away from him, most of them trying to hide smirks of their own. After a moment, he gave in and closed his eyes, growling.
Let's just go back to Tunlan, already. We got the right shroom, right? What?
The apprentice blinked, then glanced at the specimen Spar was holding.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's the correct one. Here.
He handed the grass man the satchel.
This is everything else the master will need. Let's get back, hand it over, and get some sleep, then,
Ryu grumbled, pulling his shirt back on.
I've had enough excitement for one night.
Cat muttered. What exactly it was that she was disappointed about was a topic he decided not to inquire further on. Another warp later, they walked back into the palace and headed back up to the bedroom.
Oh, there you are,
Ged growled, stepping off of the bed. He had been affixing an ancient, threadbare pillow over the queen's eyes.
What kept you? Easy,
Cat, of all people, muttered as she grabbed Ryu's arm.
We still need him. For a while, anyways. Here,
he grunted, shoving the satchel at Ged.
Now then, if you don't mind. Actually, I do,
the old man cut him off.
We'll need to commence the operation immediately. Why do you think we got the therapy pillow ready for you? For us.
Bao repeated, narrowing his eyes.
Just what exactly do you have in mind? I'd like to know that, too.
Baba chimed in. She was sitting in a chair nearby, apparently keeping herself awake through sheer willpower.
If we're using the therapy pillow, this had better be good. What are you up to, you old goat? Normally, the therapy pillow transports one into a world of dreams, comprised of the user's subconscious memory,
Get explained, taking ingredients and vials out from the satchel and mixing them, including the mushroom, which he began grinding into a powder.
The potion I am currently making, however, will temporarily shut down all of the Queen's higher brain functions, leaving only those that self-regulate her body's systems. All right,
Nina said after a moment.
I think I followed that. I didn't,
Kat muttered.
I'll explain it to you later,
she promised.
What next? At that point, I apply this magical mirror, to slightly redirect the therapy pillow,
Ged continued, pulling said mirror out of the satchel. It was round and about the size of a human head, trimmed in blue.
With the brain only partially active, it should be possible to alter the function so that the pillow creates a physical representation of the Queen's heart, where the curse is rooted, rather than her brain. And if we create a physical representation of her heart, the curse will also be given shape and form,
Spar deduced.
And you boys and girls can wipe it out the easy way,
Ged concluded.
Well, easy for you, anyways.
Everybody exchanged a glance.
Welcome to Tunlin,
Nina murmured.
Let's just get this over with,
Ryu decided.
The sooner we get out of here, the better. You're learning, kids,
Ged grunted, pouring the ground potion into a glass of sparkling blue liquid. Climbing back into the bed, he forced it between the Queen's lips, then nodded sharply after a moment.
Good. Now you all get up here. Everybody put a hand on the pillow, close your eyes, relax, and clear your thoughts.
Clambering around behind the Queen's head, he held the mirror up above it, touching the bottom rim to the pillow.
Why do I have a bad feeling about this?
Sten grumbled as they all climbed on as well, save for Rand, who simply reached between Kat and Sten to touch it with one finger. Everybody else put a hand on it, including Ryu, who did what the old man had said, closing his eyes and thinking of nothing. He could only do it for a moment, but that moment was enough. The world abruptly shifted around him, and then he was suddenly standing on a warm, unpleasantly soft surface, and there was a deep, repeating sound from all around. Opening his eyes again, he saw that they were all standing in a tunnel of living, pulsing red flesh. The sound was the Queen's heartbeat. As he looked around, he saw the walls expanding and contracting in time with the noise. The air seemed filled with a red mist that was constantly rushing in and out, and everything had a coppery, salty smell.
I do believe this is the most disgusting thing that has ever happened to me,
Spar stated with perfect calm.
Pretty sure that's unanimous,
Rand said with visible distaste, then glanced at Dees.
Well. No, this tops the chart,
she agreed, raising her hands.
So what are we looking for?
On cue, a blob of gelatinous red goo creeped around the corner, walking on fleshy tentacles that surrounded most of its body. A single green eye on the front turned to stare at them for a moment, before it squealed and bolted back the way it came.
After it!
Ryu yelled, drawing his sword, and they all gave chase, bearing down on the unfortunate monster like a stampede. The conclusion was fairly foregone. After a couple minutes, they ran it into a dead end, and proceeded to pulverize it.
There's another one,
Bao pointed out, firing at a second blob creeping along the ceiling and missing.
Damn! Should we not do that?
Sten asked as they chased it down.
I mean, if we damage any of this. Doesn't look like the bolt did anything,
Ryu noted, thinking as he ran.
I guess since this isn't really real, it's fine. All right.
Dees raised her hands.
So I can unload, then. Ah, mademoiselle.
Jean said quickly.
We are rather tightly packed in an enclosed space, yes. Oh, fine.
Pouting, she simply lashed it with lightning, slowing it enough for the rest to catch up and finish it.
Another one over there.
Nina called, pointing down another hall, and then another.
And there, too. How many of these things are there?
Rand grumbled, barreling after the first one.
We're gonna be at this all night. Welcome to Tunlin,
Spar replied without a trace of sarcasm or humor. In the end, it actually took a little over an hour. The heart world was divided into 4 sections, which apparently made sense according to the more intelligent members of the group. They advanced quadrant by quadrant, making sure each one was completely cleared of the curse's physical manifestations before moving on to the next. The instant they finished off the last one, the artificial environment shifted around them again, and a moment later, they were unceremoniously dumped back onto the floor of the bedroom.
You did it.
Baba crowed, and they all looked up to see that the Queen had deflated into her emaciated, skeletal form once more.
Not bad,
Ged grudgingly admitted, checking her over with some complicated-looking instruments.
Yes. It looks like you've completely destroyed the evil magic. There's no chance she'll become a demon now.
He paused.
Of course. Now, she's so weak, she won't even be able to get out of bed. Maybe if I...
He produced another bottle and administered it, and in a puff of smoke, the queen adopted a more normal appearance.
There we go. I'm a... Damnation and hellfire.
More smoke signaled another reversion.
Even without the curse, it's not sticking. You're getting old, goat,
Baba said, though it lacked rancor.
Losing your touch. Happens to everybody, I guess. Why, you...
Ged started to sputter, but she continued as though she hadn't heard him.
It must be rough, living on Mount Mauri at your age,
she mused absently, looking up at the ceiling.
I'll have to make the queen agree. I mean, get her permission. But I'd say saving her life is grounds for forgiveness. Why don't you have your useless apprentice bring all your things back here, and move back into your old quarters? I suppose I could do that, yeah,
Ged agreed, looking at the floor.
If you think it'll be okay, that is.
He coughed.
Anyways, these jerks did all the real work. Oh, of course.
Baba snatched the therapy pillow off of the queen's face and handed it to Ryu, who took it wearily.
You've more than earned this. Thank you, all of you. The land of Tunlin owes you all a great debt. If anything else ever comes up that needs a special touch, we operate out of a town east of Mount Phoebe,
Ryu told her, against his better instincts, as he took the treasure.
Reasonable rates. Very reasonable, I'd say,
Nina murmured, then raised her voice slightly as she glanced at the queen.
Will she be all right? She'll be fine in a while,
Ged assured her.
We'll feed her up until she's able to walk again. It might take a while, but she'll make it. So basically,
Bao said slowly,
all of this was her fault. And her reward is to lie around in bed for a month and do nothing but sleep and eat.
There was a long silence.
Let's just go,
Ryu said flatly, and everybody nodded as they turned around.
See you guys around, maybe. This was really something. Something is a good word for it, all right,
Sten muttered as they walked out.
And now, I for one need something at a local bar.
Ged coughed from behind them.
Hate to say this, folks, but they'll all be closed by now.
Everybody froze in place.
Welcome to Tunlin,
Jean suggested.
Nah.
Ryu shook his head after a moment.
We'll reopen one. Friendly like. Try the Swan's Song over on Rose Street,
Baba suggested.
They haven't paid their taxes recently. Can do.
Bao raised a hand as they all walked out.
Yeesh. What a day. What a week.
Then they all got drunk, defaced some public property, vomited in a fountain, and passed out. Music makes the people come together.